Hi guys, a while back I broke my VESC. I was hitting a curb notch and then as soon as the node hits, the board just shut off. And then when I go to unplug it, the whole controller sparked. So this is my old controller. It's the stock XR box with a ubox inside. Eventually I will need to revive this setup, but since my board is broken, this gives me a pretty good opportunity for upgrades. So this float box has been sitting on my shelf for like half a year now. And since my board is broken, I just completely broke it apart and I'm gonna rebuild it from scratch with the float box. And I thought it'd be fun to take you guys along for the ride. So first I thought it would be nice to sort of dissect the anatomy of a Onewheel. So the battery we're using is the Mario Contino's 18S2P. This is the meat pack. It's a really good battery pack. It has basically the same, if not more, juice than a GT. And it's also a crazy high torque. And then if we have a battery pack, we also need a BMS. So in this case, we're using the Flipski BMS, because it's basically the same BMS as the Z BMS, except it's in stock. And because the battery build we're using is an 18S, which means it's a 75.6 volt battery pack, we need a controller that can match that. So the controller we're using is the ubox 80 volts. And the ubox needs to talk to a few things. So first it's a Onewheel, so we need a wheel. So we need the motor. That's a horrible circle. There, pretty good. So the motor we're using is just the hypercore. The hypercore has a few plugs. We're just reusing the entire hypercore motor as is. We're not rewiring anything here. The hypercore, obviously we have our three phase wires and the Hall sensor. So these go into the hypercore. And then we also have a foot pad switch. Let's color this yellow. This is the foot pad. Foot pad, we're just using, again, the stock XR foot pad. And the ubox needs to talk to these things. So the ubox talks to the foot pad. The ubox also talks to the motor, the Hall sensor plugs, and the three phase wires. The ubox also needs a power button, which is here. And then the ubox also needs a Bluetooth module so that you can connect it with your phone. So the Bluetooth module lives here. Well, this is optional, but I really like remote tilt, so I need another Bluetooth module for remote tilt. The ubox obviously also needs power, so we need to somehow sort of connect the ubox with our battery pack. With the battery lines, there's kind of like two routes that needs to go in parallel. There's the charge route and the discharge route. So the discharge route is very simple. We're just going directly from the battery box into our controller. And the charging route is different. The charge route goes from our charge ports into our BMS, and from there into our battery pack. So the discharge bypasses the BMS, the charging goes through the BMS, and this is what we call a charge-only BMS. And another nice thing I would like to have is a front LED. The ubox makes this really easy by just providing LED or accessory power just on the ubox itself, so you don't need to connect to anything. Just plug your 12 volts, it needs to be 12 volts LED into the ubox, and it should work. And another really nice thing to have in here is a diode. It makes sure the charging only goes one way. This is to make sure that the current only goes in on the charge port, it doesn't go out, which means your charge port won't spark. If you touch it with a conductive material, this could easily spark. And I blew more than 2 or 3 charge ports, so I would really love to have this diode in here. So this is basically it. This is like a simplified wiring diagram for our Onewheel, and this is where we're gonna build. I'm using the float box and the torque box as the basis for this build, and the float box harness to connect the two. Since I got the studdless version for the float box, I need to drill my own holes. Here I'm just transferring the screw hole placements onto a sticky note so that my holes can be super accurate. The XR platform uses off-the-shelf connectors. The foot pad and Hall sensor connectors are all from Switchcraft, and the motor phase wires are from Molex. This is fantastic for DIY builds. The ubox comes with all the GST connectors you need to solder everything here, but I opted to build my own. Next up, charge port diode. 2 of these diodes can handle a 6-amp hypercharger, but these things get crazy hot, so I bundled 4 together. And then I wrapped it in thermal pad and pressed it onto the aluminum frame with a printed PETG holder to dissipate heat. Now I'm just wiring the charge and discharge circuits. As of now, the XC90 anti-spark haven't showed up in shipping yet, so this is just soldering on the regular XC90. I will resolder this component later. Next up, I'm putting all the components and wiring everything together. The ubox comes with an external Bluetooth module. For these small components, we can just hot glue it. Front box is pretty bare bone, but rideable now, so I'm shifting the focus to the rear box. I ran into an issue later in the line where the cable harness is way too long, so when you're building, make sure to put the box as a harness into your rails as early as possible so you know how long your harness needs to be. Otherwise, you need to resolder everything later. The Flipski BMS comes with XC60s, so I'm getting rid of those and soldering on my own XC30s. It's a pretty tight fit to get a BMS into the rear box, so I opted to not use a rear LED. Also, I make sure the charge and discharge XT connectors are all on the right side of the battery, not passing over where the BMS is, where the space is already super tight. Next up, front LED module. This part is 3D printed and bolted onto the float box. This is kinda hacky, but if you peel away the layer of paint on the float life sidekick, you end up with a transparent layer of plastic, which is perfect for shielding LED from debris. Here I'm resoldering the XC90 to be the anti-spark version. Next up, remote tilt. The remote comes with the Bluetooth module, and we can actually run it in conjunction with the ubox Bluetooth module. We just need to plug the remote into the unused pins on the footpad COM port. Now that's all the electronics done. We just gotta put the board back together and configure the firmware. I'm doing some basic motor config and then just recovering my last backup. Lastly, I'm just adding on the finishing touches. I'm writing down my specs on the sidekicks and doing some colorful zip ties for cable management. As I'm finishing this video, my GT broke. Water got into the motor plug and then kind of fried one of the phase wire pins. So in the next video, I'm going to convert my GT to a VESC. I'm super excited about that build, so make sure you're subscribed to see it when that video drops.